Good morning, everyone. It's another beautiful day in my neighborhood anyway. I had someone comment that I've got blue skies. Yes, because I'm away from the city. One of the things that you have to be careful of if you live in the city, if it goes to hell in a handbasket, you've got a lot of people to go crazy. They're having trouble in Southern California right now. These illegals that they brought in and are paying them basically to riot. Well, they went over and they blocked one of the major freeways, and when the police tried to arrest them, they went into the streets and started rioting and looting and doing all kinds of stuff. And then eventually, the mayor, who's partly responsible with Newsom for the fires, told the police, stand down, don't do anything. Let them destroy the city, because that's what we want, because we didn't get what we wanted when we lost the election, so they can destroy everything. We don't care. That's not what she said. I'm adding that, but that's the ultimate result. They let the city burn because they didn't care. And I hope at some point they get arrested for their behavior and spend the rest of their lives in jail, because people did die from the fires. Water's flowing again back down into Southern California. All the years I lived out there, there was always water coming down. They built concrete riverbeds, if you will. They didn't let it soak into the ground. They built things to contain it. And in certain areas, they put covers on it so it wouldn't evaporate, to bring the water into Central and Southern California. California is basically, Southern California is like Arizona. It's a desert. I've seen early pictures of the beach cities like Santa Monica and Hermosa Beach were just sand dunes with little tufts of grass here and there sticking up. That was it. Look at it now. It's a sprawling metropolitan type area. It's so bad that the property values on the coast are enormous. I know I'm going off on another tangent, but I like doing that, and I hope you do too. When I lived out there, we could not afford to buy on the beach, so we rented. It was we had our first baby, so we were, I don't know what year that was, 40 years ago anyway, 30 years ago. In any case, we lived in Manhattan Beach. We weren't on the front row because we couldn't afford that. That's right on the Strand. You basically walk out and there's the beach. We were on the second row of houses that had a garage below and the living quarters above. So we looked out over the top of the front row and could see the beach and the Strand. So it was a beautiful spot. Somewhat of a problem at sunset. The sun would get right there and be looking right in the window, big picture window. So we had to block that. But anyhow, it's so crowded down there, and people have always been somewhat inconsiderate. I had a garage underneath that I was paying for. I never used it, not once. Because I'd come home from work, which was a couple of miles inland. I worked at TRW Aerospace then. Somebody'd be double parked. I go, okay, I got a crazy person here. I'd find the local towing company, and I'd call them, and they'd come out within 30 minutes and tow the car. This got to be a daily issue. I put them on speed dial. I'd start pulling down the road, and I could see a car down there. I would just turn around and go back. I had to rent a parking space in the parking garage at the top of the hill. There was an embankment there going down to the houses that were on the front row and second row. So anyhow, Kitty's over here. You can see him in there getting into something. But I never parked in that garage. We finally moved because it was just too much. I think that was my last straw, and then we moved down I got a transfer and we moved down towards San Diego area and bought a house down there. In any case, people will do crazy things. All right. So where are we at? The topic today is do not be deceived. It's used, I don't know, multiple times in the Bible. When Jesus was asked about what the future is going to be, it would be the first thing out of his mouth. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the definition of it, deceive, to cause someone or yourself to believe something that is not true, typically in order to gain something, some personal advantage. Number 2, to give a mistaken impression and failure to admit to someone or to oneself that something is or is not true. To believe the opposite, basically. And again, it's repeated many times. In Matthew 24:4, and Jesus answered and said to them, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many." When asked about the future, we have the Bible. We know how books are covering what's happening in the future. There's much debate about it. There's so much information. People can't agree on it. But there is a lot of information. He didn't cover that. He said, don't be deceived. The serpent deceived Eve, and Eve deceived Adam. So you don't have to be the originator of a lie. You can replicate the lie by just repeating it. It's called gossip. Don't get caught in gossip, because it's not good either. Galatians 6:7. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man sows, that will he also reap. For he who sows to the flesh will of the flesh reap corruption. But he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. It's a very simple plan. It's so simple that children could understand it. But as we just talked about recently, you can harden your heart. The world has already hardened its heart. And then they start to deceive. Jesus isn't God. He may be a good man, but he's not God. How can you be a good man and lie? Obviously, he can't be, and he didn't. But that's their argument. And as we talked about in the last video with slogans, people say things and make up things for gain. Don't be deceived. James 1 verse 16. Do not be deceived, my brethren. Every good and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow of turning. He doesn't have favorites. His rules, his laws that he follows are exact. So if every good and perfect thing comes down from God, where do the bad things come from? The devil. I think personally that's why God has allowed the devil to exist. We have to have a choice between good and evil. If we don't have any choice and we have to accept God, we're not showing love. So I think he's left the devil along to influence, to try to pull us away. And if we're not pulled away, we're strong in our belief in God, in our faith in God, and in Jesus, of course. So the devil has a purpose. And his purpose is to deceive. And he's good at it. He's been doing it for thousands of years. I'm up early. I didn't sleep well last night. Sometimes I eat late, and I shouldn't do that, and I know it. Keeps me awake. So I didn't get up until 7 this morning. I'm normally up 2 hours before that. So I'm drinking coffee. It's like, kick in, come on. Get the blood thinner working. It's cool outside, but it's not freezing. I think it's like 39. In a couple hours, we're going to go out and try to burn up some of the stuff that I've got some piles out there I showed you in one of the videos of branches. We're going to burn those. We're going to try to burn some of the weeds. Get as much of this burnt down as possible. Burning is good in a controlled environment. The grass that will come back after a burn is good. Now, if they burnt down cities, you don't want grass to grow back unless you don't want the people living there anymore. They had plans to build condos and apartments in those areas. The city people did. So they wanted the rich people out so they could put cheap living in there. Get rid of the rich people. 1 Corinthians 3:18. Let no one deceive himself. If anyone among you seems to be wise in this age, let him become a fool, that he may become wise. For the wisdom of the world is foolishness with God. For it is written, He catches the wise in their own craftiness. Much of what we're going to see in the first tribulation terrors, the seals, that's pretty much man's work. It's led by the leader of men, the Antichrist. Who was out there somewhere. And probably a likable man, liked by the world, someone that we like. So we can eliminate a lot of people out there that are part of this overthrowing the world government type stuff. We can eliminate a lot of them because we don't like a lot of them. But there are ones out there that we like. Kitty, leave it alone. I had spam and eggs this morning and toast. So I put the spatula in there and it's sticking out of the sink. He's batting at it. Kitty. He won't come near me because he knows I'm going to grab him. Kitty, kitty, get out of the sink. I'll turn the water on. He doesn't run as fast as I thought he would. And that's soapy water, Kitty, so go ahead and taste it. Kitty. Sorry if I scared you like I did the cat. 1 Corinthians 3:19. For the wisdom of the world is foolishness with God, for it is written, He catches the wise in their own craftiness. I already read that. Ephesians 5:6. No one deceive you with empty words. For because of such things God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. If you listen to the false teachings and adopt them and do what they tell you to do, you're going against God. He's given us the ability to have wisdom and discernment. You only get that, though, if you stay connected. If you're breaking that connection, if you're unplugging the spirit and telling it to go away, you don't want to be bothered right now. I know it was somewhat sacrilegious, but there was humor in it, and I liked some of the humor. But the Vicar of Dibley, a female priest starting off the bat, which was not good. But anyhow, she was sometimes sacrilegious, and I didn't like that part. The humor part was okay, for the most part, but that part I didn't. And the fact she was trying to have affairs with everyone, bad. But that's probably more realistic. This was an English show, and they know what the church is like over there. They left the church to come to the United States before we were a country even. The Church of England has always been a problem. But anyhow, if she was going to do something she wouldn't do, she'd go up to her picture of Jesus and she'd turn it over. Symbolically, we do that all the time. If we're going to sin, and we know we're going to sin, and believe me, as a Christian, we know by now what sin is. If we're going to sin, we don't want the Spirit watching us. So you try to do something to get it to go away. We harden our hearts so we don't have to listen. all bad. No good can come from that. Titus 3:3. At one time we too were foolish, disobedient, deceived, and enslaved by all kinds of passions and pleasures. At one time. That means that time is over. Whatever your problem is, whatever your addiction is, you can't beat it cold turkey. And you can't beat it alone. If you are a member of AA, it's one day at a time, and you have a phone number for someone you can call, someone who knows what you're going through. Well, we have that too. It's called a spiritual connection. Now, we don't hear the voice on the other end, but he hears us, and he'll do something to help. It may be just the actual phone may actually ring when we're complaining and saying that I'm being tempted. That's a distraction. Depending on how much distraction you need, your attention to that phone call may or may not be important. But if it distracts you, that's all that counts. And as Eve said, I've mentioned this already, Genesis 3:13. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. Now, we don't know what kind of fruit she ate, what it tasted like. We get to find out, I'm assuming, eventually, if it was any good. I don't know. He may have burned the tree down. I don't know. We want to eat from the tree of life anyway, which may be better. I look at what they grow in the Middle East. They grow pomegranates. That's worse than eating nuts in their shell. You got a lot of work to get the nut out, and then you eat it. I like to eat pistachios. It's a lot of work. I've bought them already pre-shelled, and I just throw handfuls in my mouth, and it goes by way too fast. It's better to have them in the shell. I can take them out one at a time and eat them. Pomegranates, oh my God, they're like, you got to crack the open shell out, and then you got to get the insides out. And they don't come out easily. You can scoop them out with a spoon. And then there's seeds in the middle of all this stuff. The most useless fruit out there is a pomegranate. Now, you may like it, and the flavor is, it's unique, but it's nothing to write home about. I'd rather have a good apple or a peach or something. What would the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil be like? Maybe it was the pomegranate. I don't know. We're not supposed to know because we're not supposed to find out. Okay, so don't be deceived. Watch carefully. If you're watching the news, now especially if you're watching the mainstream media news, they are still lying. They just reported that NBC and I think CBS or ABC, I don't remember, one of the three letters, they both lost over 50% of their viewing audience. You cannot stay in business that way. Now, I know they're owned and funded by billionaires, but billionaires don't like to throw money away if it's not going to help. And right now, they're better off to cut their losses, let these things go back into the woodwork for a little bit because they're cockroaches, and bring them back when they're ready to attack again in 4 years. So I would see them all kind of just dwindling away. But even Fox News has covered liberal stuff with positive attitudes. I don't like that because they took some money to do that. Anyhow, don't be deceived. And don't deceive anybody. Make sure that what you're covering, what you're talking about, is right. Don't spread gossip. Check it out. You hear something? I see stuff on the internet all the time. So-and-so died, or this happened, or an explosion. I go look it up, and it's 10 years ago. They're putting old stuff up to try to stir up the population. Bad. Don't repeat that stuff, because then you're part of the problem. All right. Be careful while you're out there. It's a dangerous world. Be looking around. God says to look circumspectly and listen to him. And even if you don't hear him, pray for what you need. Pray for what you want. Expect what you need. Pray and hope for what you want. God usually gives us what we want, but not always the way we want it. He's only got 3 answers. Yes, no, and not yet. Maybe we're not ready for something. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless.